What I can say at the moment is this is a homicide, murder investigation.
As human beings, we find comfort in identifying patterns, routines, and predictabilities. If we can identify a pattern, then we can use that knowledge to stay safe, to stay secure, and to prosper. It's how we have made it as far as we have as a race. We find comfort in the seasons, the holidays, the milestones. Our life goes ever onwards in a sphere of warmth and security, and the belief that it will always continue in this way. However, all of this perceived certainty can be thrown off course by one thing: the unpredictability of our fellow human beings. This is the story of Paige Doherty. Viewer discretion is advised. Here at Dark Case Documentaries, we release at least one new true crime video every week. I hope that you will join the Dark Case family by subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications. And please consider further helping us in our work by supporting us on Patreon. Link is in the description. Our love and respect goes out to all of those who knew and loved Paige. Pamela Munro and John Bothwell welcomed daughter Paige into the world on the 17th of April 2000. Paige Doherty grew up in Clydebank in Scotland. Clydebank is a town situated by the River Clyde in West Dunbartonshire, with a population of around 25,000, 8 miles from central Glasgow. In March 2016, Paige lived with her mother Pamela and now stepfather Andy Munro, her younger sister and 2 younger brothers. Mother Pamela said that Paige was like a second mother to her siblings. Paige adored her parents, her siblings and her stepfather Andy, even going as far to say that he was the best thing that had happened to their family. Now 15 years old, Paige stood at just 4 foot 8 inches tall. Paige was naturally blonde but opted to dye her hair brunette. Paige worked as a part-time hairdresser at a salon in Kirkintilloch. She would wake up early on Saturday mornings and take 2 different buses to get there because she enjoyed it so much. Paige now had a boyfriend called Dylan. Paige's world was beginning to open up into something bigger and more exciting. On the 18th of March, Paige spent the night at her best friend Lauren Mill's house. The 15-year-olds spent their evening blow-drying each other's hair and practicing the skills that Paige had learned while working her part-time job in the salon. According to a member of Lauren's family, both girls had their hearts set on becoming hairdressers and they spent their weekends making plans for the future. The family member described how Paige was in a carefree and happy state of mind. He said, "Paige came round in the evening, as she would do quite often, and she was in a great mood, which was typical for her. The 2 of them are really into beauty treatments and totally focused on getting jobs in salons, so it was their hobby too. They went into Lauren's room and they started blow drying each other's hair and trying new stuff and trying to learn as much as they could. They said that the 2 girls were happy and full of life on that night." The family member added, "There was absolutely nothing in Paige's behaviour to suggest that she was afraid of anything or that there was anything on her mind. There was nothing to suggest that anybody might want to do her harm. No clue whatsoever that anything bad might happen." Paige made plans for the following evening. She planned to stop by her friend Chloe's house to manicure her nails, further working on her dreams. Lauren's family member added, "She wasn't the kind of teenager to hang around the streets, and she definitely wouldn't do drugs or anything like that." On the morning of Saturday, March the 19th, Paige left Lauren's house and walked to the bus stop. Situated behind the bus stop were a row of 5 small shops. She went to a small deli named Delicious Deli as part of her routine to buy a filled bread roll to eat for breakfast before boarding the bus to work. Paige's mother dropped off Paige's younger sister at a dance class that morning. As far as she was concerned, Paige was heading to work from her friend's house where she stayed the night before. Although at this time she hadn't heard from Paige, she believed that this was because she might have forgotten her phone charger. No alarm bells were rung. However, Dylan, Paige's boyfriend, began to grow concerned that he hadn't heard from Paige all morning. By now, she should have been at work, and ordinarily she would contact her boyfriend to let him know she was there, and to provide any updates or just to chat during the day. Like most teenagers, Paige was good at replying to messages and comments. Dylan and Paige had had no fights or no fallings out. Their relationship was in a good state. By noon, Dylan felt that he had to dig a little deeper into Paige's whereabouts. When he realised that this gap in their communication was unusual, he phoned the hairdressers, Paige's employer, to see how Paige was. Paige's boss answered the phone and shared the news with Dylan that Paige had never arrived at work that morning. Dylan reached a new level of worry that led him to contact Paige's mother, Pamela. Pamela said, "Soon as I knew she wasn't in work, that's when I knew something was up, because she never lets anybody down." Pamela now dismissed her original theory that daughter Paige had forgotten her charger, and that's why she hadn't heard from her. Dylan went on to check Paige's social media accounts for any new activity. This was at a time where you could see other people's activity on Instagram, but Paige's profiles lay dormant since the previous night. The lack of contact plus the lack of social media activity was the final straw for her loved ones. Mother Pamela's gut instinct kicked in and she contacted the police. Somewhere between friend Lauren's house and the hairdressers, Paige vanished. Paige Doherty was now officially a missing person. News of Paige's disappearance spread quickly in the small community. Paige's friends and relatives quickly spread the news on Facebook and generated hundreds of posters asking for any information on her whereabouts. Paige was very loved. An organised search for Paige began, made up of teams of both police officers and willing local volunteers. The search team spread out over the local area as police investigators retraced Paige's probable route to work. They arrived at the bus stop where they knew she normally caught the bus. The bus stop situated in front of the block of 5 shops. One of those shopkeepers was Ashi Ahmed. Ashi, who runs the Fleming food store in Whitecrook, said he saw the schoolgirl at around 8:15 AM on the Saturday morning going into the Delicious Deli next door to buy a roll. Ashi said, "Paige came walking past right by the door and I waved at her, and she put her hand up to wave back. She'd been in the week before and bought a roll, but on Saturday she went into Johnny's next door to get one. I spoke to John later and he said that she was cheery and bright, the way she always is." The John or Johnny referred to here is a man named John Letham, the owner of Delicious Deli. Ashi Ahmed was able to back up his claims by submitting his CCTV footage from that time. Later, Ashi added, "We have been here for more than 20 years and we've known Paige all her life." The local community wanted Paige back. On March the 20th, police kept looking in the local area. They talked to potential witnesses and appealed to the public for their assistance in returning Paige home. However, there was still no sign from 15-year-old Paige. Her phone, her social media, all laid silent. Speculation that Paige had run away from home, from a life that she loved, and perhaps that she was pregnant, were quickly disputed and denied by her family. This was a young girl of small stature without a lot of money or the means to run away and start a new life. The Help Find Paige Facebook page quickly gained followers. It shared information on Paige's appearance, her clothing that she wore the day she went missing, her normal route to work, all in the hope of jogging someone's memory that may be able to help. On March the 21st, the CCTV footage from Ashi Ahmed's store was further scrutinised by the police. Due to the nature of the investigation, police took a 3-hour sample of footage from around the time that Paige was seen by Ashi. Other police officers were interviewing Paige's family in her home. At this early stage into a missing persons investigation, the police tried to move quickly, especially when the person is young or vulnerable. Further police officers were searching the home for clues that could reveal anything about Paige's whereabouts. However, suddenly at around noon, the police interviewing the family stopped asking questions. A body had been found. It was found just half a mile from where Paige was last seen. Early signs showed the body to be that of a 20-year-old woman. The family were put at a strange sense of ease. However, Pamela already knew in her heart that something bad must have happened to her beloved daughter. At this time, there were several missing young women in that area, so without officially identifying the body, the search for Paige would continue. Pamela said that this time was her worst nightmare. The body was found in a wooded area off Great Western Road's entrance road close to the World of Golf. A walker raised the alarm after spotting what he believed to be human legs in the undergrowth. Forensic teams blocked off and searched the area. Later that evening, the 20-year-old woman whose body it was believed to be turned up safe and well. Pamela's gut feelings about her daughter grew stronger. On March the 22nd, police identified the body as that of 15-year-old Paige.
The first thing that I really want to say is my condolences go out to the family and friends of Paige. Clearly this is an extremely harrowing time for the family and friends, and I really just want to say my heart goes out to them. At this present time, a post-mortem examination will commence this afternoon to allow us to understand exactly what the cause and the circumstances leading to Paige's death. What I can say at the moment is this is a homicide, murder investigation, and Paige was assaulted.
The following was written by Pamela on Facebook. Myself and Andy Munro would like to thank everyone for their support and help in trying to find our daughter. Unfortunately, we can confirm that it is our beautiful daughter Paige who was found in Clydebank. Again, thank you for all your support. I am seeing everyone's messages, but understandably we've got a lot on our minds and can't reply. We are absolutely devastated, as many people who knew her will be. Shortly after the body was announced to be that of Paige, well-wishers began to place flowers and notes beside the road. One tribute read, "R.I.P. This is so sad. A young life taken too soon. Thoughts are with family and friends, and now no one is safe as someone is still out there. Hope they get caught very quickly. Rest in peace, little lady. Signed, worried dad of 5 girls." The ever-helpful shopkeeper Ashi Ahmed made this video in an effort to aid the inquiry further.
I was one of the last guys to see Paige alive, and I put my hand up to wave to her and I says to her, "You alright?" And she replied back, "I am alright, and I'll see you later on, Ashi." And that was the last word she said to me. "I hope you can catch the killer, please. I'm appealing to you to find the killer for us. Thank you very much."
The post-mortem revealed over 100 injuries, many of which were deemed to be defensive in character, as Paige valiantly fought off her attacker. As a personal note for me, I find the thoughts of Paige fighting for her life to be incredibly powerful. I also find it to be one of the most upsetting parts about these cases, and I can't quite put my finger on why that is, but it really is just heartbreaking to think of. I have a huge respect for anyone that defends themselves in these situations, and I feel proud of Paige for doing what she did. Paige's mother disputes the facts that were released to the public and believes the number of injuries to be nearer to 500. The injuries were thought to be made by multiple, at least 3 sharp objects. The sharp objects are thought to range from knives to scissors to screwdrivers. On March the 23rd, the Delicious Deli in Whitecrook, where Paige was last seen, is cordoned off by forensic police. A white forensics tent used to preserve evidence from being contaminated was erected outside the deli at 8:45 p.m. Police in Clydebank also sealed off a neighbouring street and started searching vehicles and a home. On March the 24th, the owner of Delicious Deli, John Letham, is detained for questioning by the police. On the evening of the same day, the iconic Titan crane in Clydebank is lit up using pink lighting in a tribute to Paige. On March the 25th, during interrogation, John Letham denies having anything to do with Paige's case.
So are you adamant we will find no forensic evidence linking you to Paige Doherty? No. You sure about that? Can you say positive? Is that because you did murder Paige Doherty? Going to charge you, John Letham, at Delicious Deli, did repeatedly attack, strike and stab the deceased to the face, neck and arms, and you did murder her. Do you understand the charge? Have you anything to say? What's going on in that shop? She's gone into your shop that morning to buy a roll for her breakfast and she never walks out of that shop again. And what has caused Paige Doherty to be in that state? You're the only person who's been in and out of that shop. You're the only person who can tell us what happened.
However, police looked to move forwards with their case against John Letham via the Crown Prosecution Service. On March the 26th, John Letham appeared in court accused of killing Paige Doherty. Throughout a private hearing at Dumbarton Sheriff Court, the deli owner offered no plea and no declaration. On April the 4th, the cause of death is verified. Following the autopsy and coroner's investigations, a definitive cause of death was announced. According to the death certificate, she suffered sharp force injuries to her neck, severing vital arteries. On April the 12th, following an attack on the family home by angry local residents, John Letham's wife flees with a young child. A neighbour of the Lethams said, "The police sat outside the home 24 hours a day. There was a lot of anger among people here because Paige was well known and very popular. Some of the youngsters were quite open about smashing the windows of the flat as soon as the police moved out. So it would have been difficult for a young mother to return here." 1 month after Paige's passing, mourners assembled at St Margaret's Church in Clydebank to bid farewell. Paige was transported to the chapel in a carriage drawn by 2 white horses. Around 300 family members, friends and well-wishers followed in a procession. The procession was followed by a private service and burial for those closest to Paige. What is thought to have occurred to Paige Doherty on the day she vanished is as follows. Paige left her friend's house and walked to the bus stop. She walked past Ashi Ahmed's shop, exchanged pleasantries, and then moved on to the Delicious Deli. At 8:21 AM, she walked into the Delicious Deli. This was captured on CCTV. As a disturbing note, Pamela, Paige's mother, used to frequently buy food from this deli after dropping Paige's little sister off at daycare during the week. After entering the shop, the attack quickly took place, and Paige was either incapacitated or was already dead. After around 10 minutes, Letham closed the shop's blinds. At this point, it is believed that he either went on to continue the attack or to finally take Paige's life. A hairdresser that worked locally at a different hair salon to the one that Paige was employed at visited the deli and attempted to see through the windows. The deli's blinds were closed, but the business didn't appear to be fully open or fully closed for business. This is something that caused more interest in the premises than it just being open as usual. Letham saw the woman and put forward a story that a job applicant hadn't turned up. He said, "Oh, what a morning. The lassie didn't turn up. I had a nosebleed and I need to collect my car." John Letham then left his premises and went to an adjacent shop. He purchased a number of suspicious products: bin bags, gloves, bleach, cleaner and wipes. He then returned to the deli and wrapped Paige's body in bin liners. He then collected and moved his car to the front of the shop. Concealed in bin bags, Letham brought Paige's body out of the front of his shop and placed it in the trunk of his car. Letham is alleged to have nearly run into a little boy whilst carrying Paige's body to his car. This is visible in unreleased CCTV footage. On this footage, Paige's foot wearing a white sock was visible poking out of the black plastic. He then got in his car and left. Bear in mind that there were 4 more shops on the same block as Delicious Deli. Although it was early, business owners, patrons and other members of the public were nearby. It really is quite surprising that he didn't get caught at this early stage. After leaving the deli, Paige's body wasn't taken to the place where it was found. Instead, Letham returned to his home. He moved Paige's body into his garden shed. He cleaned himself up, changed into fresh clothing, and then returned to the scene of the crime. That day, he kept his business open until 3:15 PM. John Letham, in a truly disturbing move, took his wife and child on a short family holiday to Balmahar. Upon returning, he didn't move Paige from his shed until March the 21st, the same day that she was discovered. Letham's car was seen by CCTV cameras passing by the forested area along the access road, which is close to the location that Paige was found. This was between 6 and 7 o'clock in the morning. Less than half a mile separated the site from Letham's deli. In an effort to ensure that there was no forensic evidence linking him to the death, he thoroughly cleaned his car. Later that day, Paige was found. The following day, Letham was arrested. John Letham entered a guilty plea at Glasgow's High Court on September the 5th, 2016. John Letham testified to authorities during his trial that Paige had entered his business and was requesting a job. Letham said that he rejected the teen's request, saying that he had other candidates to interview. He claimed that Paige said, once she was declined, that she would tell everyone that he had SA'd her if he didn't give her the job. Letham said that his response to the girl's statements had admittedly been a gross overreaction. He said that this is because he had a family member that had been listed on the sex offenders registry, and he was afraid that if Paige started accusing him, he too would be added to the list. He claimed that he feared he would lose everything if this happened. Letham recalled Paige saying, "I thought I was getting a job. I will just say that you touched me." As a quick note from me, this seems like an obvious lie. Paige loved her work as a hairdresser. This was proven by her dedication to her job, and to be honest with you, all of her behaviour. She made plans to work in the beauty industry, that was her plan. Why would she suddenly want to give that up and instead work at a deli? It doesn't make any sense. I find this to be a really, really weak excuse. Really poor. Letham claims that Paige then began to scream loudly in an effort to gain attention from anyone nearby. Letham said that he then attacked her to protect his reputation and his business, and to silence her screams. The family of Paige Doherty gave victim impact statements in court. Pamela, Paige's mother, spoke in court about how devastated she was to lose her child. Pamela said that she had been experiencing terrifying dreams, night terrors and sleeplessness since Paige had been taken. She testified in court how thoughts of her daughter screaming in panic and pain would wake her up in the night. Pamela would then be repeatedly forced to face the reality that she couldn't do anything to rescue her daughter. Andrew Munro, Paige's stepfather, also spoke in court about how he had been dealing with severe depression ever since Paige was taken. Paige's grandmother described her as a kind and selfless person and all-round good girl.
Today we see a monster put behind bars for the unthinkable brutal crime he committed against our daughter Paige. A beautiful 15-year-old with a full life ahead of her and a massive family and group of friends are left to carry on with her no longer here. There is no sentence high enough to justify what has happened, but we can now say there is one less evil man in this world.
John Letham was sentenced at the High Court in Glasgow on October 12, 2016, which was 7 months after the murder of Paige Doherty. Judge Lady Ray set a minimum sentence of 27 years in prison. She remarked, "This was a savage, frenzied attack on a child." Judge Lady Ray continued by stating that Letham's mental health had been examined and that there was no obvious psychological or psychiatric reasons for why Letham carried out the crime.
What you did was truly reprehensible. It is impossible to comprehend how an apparently happily married man with a young child who's running a successful business is capable of such an horrific level of violence.
Detective Superintendent Duncan Sloan also said the following about the investigation. The CCTV footage, coupled with extensive forensic examinations of the crime scenes, helped to establish what happened to Paige and who was responsible. I am sure that the sheer weight of this evidence has led to the guilty plea at court today. Our thoughts remain with Paige's family, whose vibrant, bright young daughter has been cruelly taken away from them at just 15 years of age. Paige's whole future lay ahead of her, and her life has been brutally cut short by the vicious actions of one man. Letham then appealed his conviction in February of 2017. His lawyer argued that Letham's punishment was far too severe. Attorney Ian Dugwood said that John Letham was a first-time offender. In addition, he mentioned that Letham was a married man and father of a small child, and that the murder had been spontaneous, and that he had never committed a crime like this. Letham wanted his regret for the crime to be considered in his appeal. Letham got his sentence lowered to a mandatory minimum of 23 years in prison. Paige's memory lives on. Pamela subsequently set up Paige's Promise. The website describes it as follows. Paige's Promise is a charitable organisation set up honouring Paige Doherty, who was taken too soon in March 2016. We aim to help other families in similar circumstances. As we expand, we want to offer financial assistance to families towards funeral costs or expenses incurred while off work to cover bills. Our aim is to help families or anyone else who is going through tragic circumstances and needs to gain peace and harmony in their life. August 2018 proved just how hard Paige's death hit her family. There are always multiple victims, even if only one life was taken. Paige Doherty's father passed away. Paige's grandmother, Roseanne Bothwell, 71, said that her son died of a broken heart. Paige's mother, Pamela, shared what she believed Paige would be saying now. She would be saying to everybody, don't dwell on this, don't be sitting sad and being upset, don't put off your life. She'd say, just forget about the person that did this, make more time for family and don't argue as much. Life is far too